The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Good morning. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip. CJ's hiding in the bunker again. Well, we do have a guest coming today, but before we do, let's just get right into it today. Last night's city council meeting, or lack thereof. I'm not even sure if you could call a 2-minute and 11-second meeting a meeting, and with no citizens' input on one of the most important issues that we face in the city of Fall River, which are jobs. I was extremely disappointed. On our previous show, we talked about our issues with the TIF. Everybody knows we need jobs. Everybody knows that we have to bring jobs in. But we can acknowledge that fact and still realize that this was not a great deal. We had no guarantees. We gave away the city and got very little in return. And then to see the entire city council just rubber stamp it without one comment to that effect is disappointing at best and appalling on the other end of the spectrum. So CJ, weigh in on this. CJ, I don't want to interrupt you. Turn up your audio. You're muffled.
I'm sorry. There you go.
There you go.
Much better.
Live TV.
Live TV, it's always something. As I was saying, Pat Casey yesterday came out and said she does not support the citizens' right to be heard. Okay? What a lovely thing for an elected official to say. But after that meeting, I told all 9 city councilors, because they adjourned rather rapidly, that I have never in my life felt disfavor for all 9 city councilors all at once. And every one of them snapped up and said, but this is about jobs. This is about jobs. No. It's not only about jobs. This is about the citizens having the right to be heard. No citizen that wanted to be heard was going to say, we don't want Amazon here. That has never come up, although Faust Fiore and Rick Oliveira are painting me, particularly, as the person that wants to destroy it. And Ron Rusin, who's on the board of economic disaster or destruction, whichever you prefer, turned around and said to me, are you trying to destroy this city single-handedly? Imagine that, Chip. I have the ability to single-handedly destroy the city. So when I raise my hands like this and say, the city will be healed, there'll be no financial problems anymore, it should all be done, right?
Well, you've been classified as a weapon of mass destruction. So, but with that, it's true. Nobody has said that we don't want Amazon. I've been a proponent of everything that would bring jobs into Fall River. But the fact is, there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And you can say it's about the representation of the people. These people are elected to represent our best interests. And I think it would have been in the best interest of this community and the city for at least some city councilors to say, listen, we've given them millions of dollars worth of tax breaks. And we don't have one job, no percentages guaranteed. We're going to encourage them. We're going to try to cajole them into giving us jobs. Again, it's like we're begging. They're getting a deal here. Even the labor force is getting paid less than it would any other place in the state. What a deal, to quote some people. But the reality is, nobody could say, look, I'm voting for this. I'm voting for it under duress. I'm voting for it because we need jobs, and we understand that. But this should have been done. This is one of the problems at Fall River. And as far as Pat Casey's concerned, come on, CJ. She doesn't even agree in her own right to be heard. She's the only city councilor that was disappointed that the mayor circumvented the city council on the pay-as-you-throw issue and went to the Board of Health. Pat doesn't care about anything as long as she can sit in the corner, agree with the mayor and get her potholes in their cars fixed.
I know that, but what makes me laugh about this whole thing is that they keep trying to spin this. You know, they've all become spin masters. They keep trying to spin this as though this is all about jobs. This is all about jobs. This is all about jobs. Well, that's wonderful. It's all about jobs, and I understand that, and I'm all for jobs. But you know, when you have a system in place, it should be utilized properly. You don't have in the TIF board meeting lie after lie after lie. And Ron Rooster said, what lies? And I said what lies, and he justified those as well. And turn around and say, oh, and by the way, we need a special meeting on Thursday, so we don't have, so I want it now. And Joe Comet says, okay, I do it. You know, another one that's so connected to the administration's ass, it's unbelievable. So, I mean, what do you do? Oh, I know I said that word. Oh, shame on me. But what do you do? Truly, what do you do? And again, it's unbelievable that the people of Fall River don't have a right to speak out on what happens to them. The other spin that they keep giving this is, well, we're not getting any tax money on that property now, so what do you care if we don't get any for 15 years? What?
Well, of course, that's absurd. I mean, their arguments make absolutely no sense. Yeah, we're not going to get any tax money, but gee, we could have got a guarantee on a few jobs. We could have made sure that some Fall River contractors were there during the building phase. I mean, it isn't illegal, as they try to say, and all they do is lie. And you know something, I don't agree, there's nothing that bothers me more than people not participating in a democratic process. If you don't vote, I feel, you really shouldn't have a say in anything. But the reality is, wait a minute, we have our guest. We have our guest on the hot seat.
I thought you were about to say nothing bothers me more than somebody being late.
That's it. No,
How are you?
We understand. Okay, for our audience, we have District Attorney and candidate for Mayor Sam Sutter. It's great to see you here.
Good to see you too, Chipper.
We're just going to finish up a quick wrap, and we'll let you mic up and as we're
Okay,
doing it.
great, yep.
But we'll get back to this tirade on the council. But sometimes it almost confirms why people don't vote in this community, because when they see what the city council does and they don't pay attention, they have a 2-minute meeting on something as important as Amazon, and nobody makes a comment that we're dealing with this under duress, that we should have got some guarantees. We're giving them millions of dollars and we're getting nothing. And then for a city councilor to say that the citizens shouldn't have the right to speak, and that's why they call a special meeting, is deplorable. The fact is that if I had my way, we would spend about 6 hours at every meeting with citizens' input, because this government is about the people.
Well,
and with that, we'll wrap up so we can get to our guest shortly,
One
but
last
go
thing,
ahead.
though. The funny part about it was there was also some finance issues on the special meeting agenda, and they were for money for the police and fire department. Now remember, we're dealing with the mayor who sent out a card who said, I'm all about public safety. All of that was tabled. The fire chief was there, the fire department union president was there, and they just tabled it blanketly. 2 minutes, 11 seconds. And hey, the heck with the fire department, we'll take care of them on Tuesday. So it's definitely interesting.
Well, you know I care, but with that, we will segue into our guest, District Attorney Sutter, candidate for mayor. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Next time I'll be on time.
We try to give as much information to the people as we can.
Yep.
So you're a candidate for mayor. You've been reelected again, and so I guess we can start, because this process is a very short one. We don't have much time to campaign, and a lot of people don't really know you. And there are a lot of people that want to know why you want to run for mayor. And we're not going to get specific about what you're going to do about the budget. You have to really see what the city has. But why don't you tell us, number one, why you want to be the mayor of this city when it's in the condition it's in?
Well, I keep looking for the most concise way, the shortest way, and the strongest way to say this. But the fact of the matter is that, as I said on Monday night at my organizational meeting, to me personally, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. So one is that the city is in trouble. I mean, we're in political turmoil, we're in fiscal turmoil, and that's, I think, obvious to anybody that lives here. Nobody can deny that. So that's number one. Number two, my roots in the city now are deep. I may not have grown up in Fall River, but the fact is that I've been living here for 22 of the last 24 years. My kids have gone to school here, and I'm invested in the city. So the city's in turmoil and in fiscal trouble, and I live here. And so to me, it was clear that it was time to step up. I think you have to have self-confidence in this business of politics, and I do have confidence in myself, and I am convinced that I'm the best candidate in the race, and I'm convinced that I'm the person that can lead the city the best. So 1, 2, 3, there it is.
Well, that sounds good, and obviously the public, because Fall River is a very parochial place. Everybody knows everybody. It's a kind of a small town atmosphere in a medium-sized city, and a lot of people know you as a district attorney, but they don't really know you well. And there's a lot of talk about the you're going to take a pay cut to do this, and the fact that
That was a tough sell to my wife.
Why would you step out of a job that you've got a pretty good handle on, and obviously you ran unopposed, and why would you do this just because of some people are having a difficult time saying why. It just doesn't make sense.
Right. So here's what I say to that, Chipper. Some people are like the way I am. You take a look at, I'll give you some examples. You take a look at Dan Conley. So he was district attorney of Suffolk County. I think he was originally appointed in 2000 or 2001. He'd done an excellent job. Tom Menino stepped down. He ran for mayor. Why? Because he wanted to do it. It was something that was in him. Martha Coakley could have been attorney general for another 2 terms. By and large, people liked what she was doing as attorney general, but she wanted to run for governor. Bill Keating was district attorney of Norfolk County. He'd been district attorney for 3 terms. He had no opposition. He wanted to run for Congress. So it's like, I liken it to somebody who wants to become chief of police, somebody who wants to, as a good restaurant going, they want to expand and open another one. So that's just something that's inside me. But Fall River, as I've said, is in need right now. That potential really appeals to me. So that's I hope that gets it across.
Well, yeah, I think we do. And the other thing is, now let's get into what you bring to the table. Fall River is in dire straits. I attended a meeting in Boston over almost a year and a half ago where the former city administrator, maybe almost 2 years ago, said we were over $500 million in debt with our unfunded liabilities, bonding and unfunded liabilities. It's going to take a tremendous amount of leadership and a tremendous amount of tough decisions to turn this city around. So, I want you to tell us why tell our audience out there, and we even have people in the United Arab Emirates watching us that are from Fall River. So I want you to tell us, why you feel that, you've got your toolbox is ready to take on this major project. This is like the big dig.
Well, the great advantage that I have in this race, as opposed to when I ran for a district attorney in 2006, or even when I ran for Congress in 2012. So when I ran for district attorney in 2006, I had some very good ideas about how to make the DA's office better, but I'd never really proven myself at leading because all that I'd led was a law practice. And I did have a secretary and part-time paralegal, but I hadn't led an organization. In 2012, I'd never worked as a legislator, so Bill Keating had that advantage over me. He'd been a state rep, he'd been a state senator. Now what I can say is I've led an organization. I've led an organization for 8 years, and an organization that was very troubled back in 2006. So you look at the benchmarks by which district attorneys are judged, and I think the number one is the homicides, because that's the murders, because that's under our statutory authority to run those investigations. So we were moving along in 2004, 5, 6 at the rate of about 50-55% in solving those crimes. That was too low. Under my leadership, with the assistance of very good people, we've raised that to somewhere between 80 and 90% of the homicides are being solved, and then we're going into court and we're getting the convictions either at trial or on pleas. So we have the homicides. Gun violence was at an all-time high. back in 2006. 38 people were shot in New Bedford alone. We've cut gun violence based upon how many people are actually being subjected to a shooting by 60%. That's the best in the state. Other benchmarks that I can give you, the record of winning trials in Superior Court, cutting the amount of turnover that was taking place at the district attorney's office, a number of different areas where we have succeeded right at the top of the state. So with respect to the fiscal issue, though, because that's the one that I think concerns many people, if not most of the voters in Fall River, what I can say is this. Have I been in a situation like the one you just described? $500 million in unfunded liabilities? I haven't been in that specific situation, but I've been in situations where the fiscal problem seemed dire. When I moved into the district attorney's office in January of 2007, we had approximately 20 people, I think, retire, somewhere between 15 and 20 people. So they took all of their unused vacation days, as you know, because you've been employed in the state system, and about a quarter of their, they get 1/4 of their unused sick days. So that was a liability of about 7% of my entire budget, 7%. So I had to embark upon a mission to get that money back from the state. My argument was, why should the Bristol District Attorney's Office be penalized because I won an election? That argument, with the help of State Senator Joan Menard, State Representative Pat Haddad, we were able to carry that argument in the State House. We got the money back, and the District Attorney's Office proceeded right along. Then, a year later, in October of 2008, the recession hit. Kaboom! And our budgets were cut 2.5% right away. And then the following July, for fiscal 2010, it was cut 8.5%. So that's a lot in a small district attorney's office. And, but we were able to manage. You know, my approach was always collect the best minds that I can. Let's have an open dialogue. Let's get the best ideas, and then let's implement those best ideas. And that's exactly what we did. And then we enlarged upon that. So that was in the summer of 2009. Then the following year, we did something that, once again, I've never heard about this being done before. Now, maybe someone can call in and say, or speak to me when I'm campaigning and say, hey, I know somebody else who did that, but I was an incumbent who got elected without opposition, and I decided to have a second transition. Why? Because I knew that we needed to make further cuts at the district attorney's office, and I knew that we needed to bring some new people in, and I also knew that we needed to get more value in the sense of the return that you're getting for that particular position from various positions. So I came up with this idea. I had to convince the office that it was a good idea, and we embarked upon a series of, about 100 people needed to re-interview for their jobs, and not everyone made it. Only there were about 15 people that had to move on. But that was an innovative way of dealing with another fiscal problem. So I think if I get in a room, people like yourself, and say, how can we tackle these problems, get a good dynamic going back and forth. You know, not to go on too long about this point, but when I was in college, I majored in basically American history, American political science. And my favorite book, one of my favorite books, was a book called The Lion and the Fox by James McGregor Burns about Roosevelt, Franklin Delano. And I'll never forget it. And it was his approach was that he would collect minds in a room that disagreed with one another. And he would just kind of sit there as a mediator and ask questions and probe and try to come up with the best solution possible. He didn't want yes people around him. He wanted people who were very strongly opinionated and often disagreed with one another, and then he would try to cull from that the best idea. That's exactly the approach I've taken at the district attorney's office. I call my top two people, Bill McCauley and Tom Quinn. Bill McCauley's sort of an idealist in his approach to prosecution. Tom Quinn is very pragmatic in his approach to prosecution. I love that situation because they often disagree. There I am kind of mediating the dialogue. Pat Bomberg is often in on that, Lou Pacheco. But when you see what we've done with various problems at the DA's office, I think that works. That's exactly the approach I'd take to the city.
Boy, that sounds like a place I'd fit in well. I disagree with everybody.
Yeah, CJ, I'm still waiting for you to weigh in with a question here. Come on. You've been waiting. You've been too quiet.
Well, you know, I'm listening, and I think it's just very interesting in the approach that you're presenting, District Attorney Sutter. And I find that very refreshing because you don't hear that too much from anyone that's currently in office or currently considering a run for office. But my big question is, and you brought this up, which actually can be applied to something here in Fall River. You were in a budget shortfall and you went and fought for it up at the State House. Well, Fall River has a major liability, which is the CSO project. You know, $250 million, I believe it is. And
Maybe even more, right?
yeah, and maybe even
maybe
more.
even more,
Right.
yeah.
And that's the big problem. And no administration has actively pursued the federal government, because what happened was that when we had an option to get this money, an individual working for the city was on vacation and failed to file for it. So now we have to go back and again, hat in hand, ask for it. What type of attempt would you make to see if we can get money from the state and from the federal government on relieving the city of some of this liability? Because it is truly about 50% of our budget every year is meant just for the CSO project.
Well, I'll tell you two stories, one about somebody else and one about myself, to give your viewers confidence that I'm the person that can get this done. So the story about somebody else is a story about Congressman Bill Delahunt. So I learned this story when I was on the campaign trail in 2012. So when Bill Delahunt became a congressman back in 1997, there was a huge problem at Otis Air Force Base with the runoff from the chemicals that were being used to clean the planes into the groundwater. And the remedy was going to cost the Cape, I can't remember the exact number, but it was a tremendous amount of money. And people were kind of wringing their hands, what are we going to do, what are we going to do? But Bill Delahunt has, I don't know whether you've ever met him, Chipper, but he's got a great personality. He has a lot of charm, he's very bright, he's very persuasive. And he set about making that his mission, and he was able to get the funds from Congress in order to fix that situation at Otis Air Force Base. And every single day, the people that drink their water in Mashpee and Sandwich and Bourne, I think, 4 towns, they owe the cleanliness of their water to what Bill Delahunt did back in 1997, 1998. So what I say about myself is that when the Supreme Court, CJ, when they said that what I was doing with that dangerousness statute couldn't be done anymore because the legislature hadn't made it clear, so I was cutting gun violence by holding gun criminals, asking judges to do it, but we were pushing very hard, without bail for 90 days so we could prosecute them within 90 days and then not plea bargain their case. The Supreme Judicial Court said, nope, you misread the statute, stop. So what did I do? Did I say, oh, well, I'll have to go on to something else? No, I made it my mission to get new legislation passed so that I could do what I'd been doing that had worked. It took me 18 months, but I did it. And then I did the same thing last year with a shooting statute, a drive-by shooting statute. I knew there was a big gap in the law because we couldn't charge individuals with the crime that they should be charged with. We could only charge them with assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon, and that's not a serious enough offense. So we needed a separate shooting statute. Other states with gun violence problems had it, like California, Illinois, Florida. It took me a few years to get that done, but I got it done. I'm persistent, I think I'm persuasive, and so I think that working together, you know, I want to unify the city. I think working together, I remember asking you, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, I said, you think working together we can solve these problems? And you said to me what? Yes. So,
Any problem can be solved. Yeah.
so I agree.
Well, let me ask.
Hold on 1 second, Jim. I got to say one thing about you, District Attorney Sutter. Nobody can ever say you're not persistent.
Thank you.
I mean, I have followed your career since you took over from District Attorney Walsh, and I was extremely surprised at some of the things you did. I didn't think anyone would ever think outside of the box the way you did and just say, we're going to look at each individual person in my office and make sure that, number one, they belong there,
Right.
and number two, They're going to represent the people, which is what your job does.
That's it.
So
That's
I
exactly
have to give you, big kudos on that, because again, as you said yourself, you are persistent, and I must agree with you on that point.
I'll just tell you a quick story. I mean, I've been persistent since I was a kid, and my mother used to say I was like a dog with a bone. So.
Well, that's good, because this is why we have people on. I think you've really showed some people some things that you really can't see in a campaign ad or something here. But let's get down to a major issue here in the city. Our current mayor has chosen to divert money, taxpayers' money, from essential services and run many departments on grants. And the SAFER grant for one, not prepare for any eventuality, and then we can never get back to that money. So the fact is, he lost. The reason he said we're in a deficit is $14 million of SAFER grant, $600,000 or police grant, pay raises which he gave out, and the loss of host fees, all of which were foreseeable. If you become mayor, there's going to have to be a radical change in how we allocate our real resources, which are the tax dollars. So just tell me as you perceive it, and I understand you can't really give me definitive answers, because until you do a full, audit of what the money is and where we are. But the fact is, what's your opinion on this managerial style where you take essential services and do it and pay for them with money that's not our money?
What I keep seeing, Chipper, as I go around the city and talk to people like yourself and CJ, other leaders of the city, is that there has been a pattern of a decision that has a short-term political gain, but a long-term citywide loss. That's what I see in many different areas. Short-term political gain, long-term citywide loss. So I think my strength, maybe because I think I'm the oldest candidate in the race, at least of the ones that I'm thinking about right now. I don't know everybody's age, but I'm certainly older than the mayor. I'm certainly older than Sean Kadim. I'm certainly older than Dave Dennis, and I think I'm a little bit older than Mike Mayoza. I think one of my strengths as district attorney was vision. I used to, in the beginning, I'd be dining by myself. Remember one night at Chili's early on, maybe like 1 or 2 months in, I was writing down the various parts of the district attorney's office, the various divisions, the various initiatives that I wanted to embark upon, the problems, and I started to determine where was I going to spend my time. I think it's a strength that I can look at the big picture and then chart a course. That's what I've done at the DA's office to reduce gun violence, gang activity, improve our prosecutions of domestic violence, get everybody in the office to volunteer in the community. So, but it's the same essential approach that we talked about in the beginning of getting the best minds together, having an open dialogue, and then from that, having a vision and then implementing it. So that's exactly what I'm going to try to do as a mayor.
Well, we don't have much time, so I'm going to say that obviously we're going to have some other candidates we want to inform everybody, but we're going to have you back again if you don't mind,
look forward
because
to
the 20 minutes and 25 minutes goes by very quickly, and I think that we've just begun to touch on areas. And I think that the people got to know you today, and that was our main objective. Right. We wanted to introduce Sam Sutter to our viewing audience, and I think you did a great job. We appreciate you coming.
Appreciate it too, and look forward to doing it again. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. Audio, CJ.
Sorry, I mute the mic every so often. I must say, I was very impressed with you on Monday night, and I'm getting more and more impressed with you every time I listen to you. So
thank you,
it's
CJ,
definitely something to do. And thanks for coming on to Spindle City Straight Talk. This is Spindle City Straight Talk. Have a great day.
Vote December 16th, everybody.